Today's guest is Buz Artiano, owner of BuildX. All right, Buzz, thank you for coming on the show.
Thoughts? I'm glad to be here.
That's awesome. That's great. So, your background, I guess currently you're doing custom homes. It looks like you have a fairly developed process with that. What were you doing before this?
So in the early days, in the early 80s, 82 to 91, I was a residential framer. So actually banging nails and cutting wood and framing houses. And then in 1991, I started building and selling houses, which I've built over 800 houses since then and sold them. And along the way, in 1991, I also started a fire and water damage repair business, only in the repair end of it, not the mitigation side. I sold that company in 2001 to three employees. And then in 2007, I started another company called BuildX, which again focused on fire and water damage repair. And I sold that to a national company called Blue Sky in 2021. And then in 2022, I started BuildX. And currently, we are focusing on accessory dwelling units, which are typically 900 square feet or smaller. They can be built on your existing lot, subordinate to your primary structure.
Sure. I mean, some people, starting and selling or just starting one company and getting it going is enough, but you've put yourself through this multiple times. Why?
That's a great question. I will tell you that after you've had an exit, so that company from 2007 to 2013, I don't care what anyone tells you, it becomes part of your identity. It becomes who you are. And when you sell your identity, you are in the void. And anyone that's gone through a sale, it's honestly, it's no different than losing a loved one, only not as severe, obviously, because you can go start another business and you can't replace a person. But it's a very similar feeling where you have a tremendous sense of loss, even though you got a lot of money. And after about 6 months of being on the sidelines, if you will, I realized that in my DNA is the need to go out and do things and help people and build stuff. And so I started it all over again. And
Yeah.
this is my third startup. I will tell you that when you start a company, no matter how many times you start, no matter how much money you have, it's just as hard as when you started the first time. And what I quickly realized, there was a time, probably in the first 6 months of starting BuildX, that I said to myself, I don't remember it being this hard, number one. And number two, I said to myself, at points, I said, gee, maybe I just was lucky back then, because there were times when I was not gaining any traction. I wasn't getting anywhere. And you just have to hold on. You have to keep going. And I was fortunate that we've, done very well now. We've latched onto this accessory dwelling unit boom in Massachusetts, and we're going like gangbusters. We have 20 units in the pipeline, and I think we'll finish the year between 30 and 36 units. So
Yeah, I mean, you said it's just as hard. I guess just because the variables are different. Even if you took things or say, hey, next time if I were to do it, I'm going to do this differently. The variables and the people are different, so I guess the learning curve is there as well.
yeah, and you quickly find out that it's no different when getting in a new relationship. You quickly find out that all the problems that you had in your last company, you have in your new company because you own the company and all the problems start with you. It's
You
not your
said
people. It's not your
yes,
people. It's not your systems. It's you.
yeah. So over the years, have you done things to try to mitigate or improve certain things that potentially lead to work-related or other problems?
Yeah. Number one thing is you have to realize that you have to have a certain sense of humility, and you have to reflect on what's really happening versus what you think is happening, which is actually easier now as you get older, number one. Number two, you have the power now to talk to AI and have a
Yeah.
full blown conversation about what's going on. And it can be your in house counsel, if you will, and
Yeah.
help you talk through your issues. It's amazing the conversations you can have with these tools. I use all three. I use Gemini, I use Claude, and I use ChatGPT, and I use them differently for different things. So, uh,
Interesting. Tell me
yeah.
how you differentiate the usage at this point, because I know it's always changing.
So for me, ChatGPT is more of a talk at it and get ideas
Hmm.
AI.
Hmm.
Gemini is in chat stinks at image generation. The images are terrible. Gemini is phenomenal at generating images, any
Hmm.
type of image and videos, phenomenal. And then Claude, I find, is more of a uh, you know in-house counsel, if you will, where you can have full-on conversations and it'll actually understand what you're asking and give you context around what you're doing.
Mm. Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
and you can play all three of them against each other. You can take Chat's answer and put it in Claude and ask it what it thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you for that. So, in terms of, there's so many different ways to go. You have your serial entrepreneurial side. You have, you're talking about a trend, right? In your area, and it sounds like that's what you base this current business on. I mean, at at what point did you know that this was a big enough trend to latch onto, or was it a leap of faith?
No, 100% great question. So in 2022, when I started BuildX, my original intent was to go after custom home building and architect driven work. And I quickly realized that that's not my reputation. I've been in the fire and water damage space, and I've been in the production housing space for a long time. And architects, had no relationship with architects, very little, and I was struggling to gain any traction in that space. In December of 23, a longtime friend of mine, 26-year friend of mine that used to work for me, called me and said, "Will you build me an ADU for my son?" And I said, "Pam, I'll build you whatever you want. What's an ADU?" I had heard the term before, but never paid attention to it. And she explained it to me, and she said, "I think the town of Plymouth is going to make them as of right in the spring of 24." I said, "Okay." So we started working on it. It did pass town meeting. It became law. We pulled the very first ADU permit in Plymouth for a detached ADU. We built a 900 square foot, 2 bedroom, 1 bath unit. And on a whim, I said to Pam, "Would you mind if I have a home tour and just invite people to visit the ADU and see what they think about it?" And she said, "Sure, go ahead." So this was November of 22. So for 5 weeks, weekends, we had Saturday and Sundays, open house, if you will, for 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday each. And over those 10 visits, 10 ADU tours, we had 300 families come through.
Mhm.
300. And they came in groups from 2 to 10 people. There were times when you couldn't even move in the house. And just hearing their stories and the reason they were interested in it led me to understand what a massive need there is for this product. And from those home tours, we sold 5 more units. And then in May of 25, we started holding the home tours again. And we had those all the way to December of 26, excuse me, December of 25. And we had over 697 families come through in that time frame. And we sold, 15 to 18 more units from that. And we just had an ADU home tour this past weekend in January of 26. And we had 63 families come through in 2 days.
Wow. Okay.
There literally was a line out the door so people could come inside. You would
Yeah.
think I was giving away concert tickets.
Listening to, actually, obviously, you have a contact that had a need, and then just basically putting it out there to get feedback was the key for you.
100%. And then we've been running Facebook ads and YouTube ads and other ads, and And generally, we're getting anywhere from 10 to 20 inquiries online, not counting the ADU home tours per week. So
Very
there's
cool.
there's a tremendous need for this type of housing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Um, I think what fundamentally, like, running this type of business compared to the other type of business, like if you're doing restoration, would it be fair to say it's more of a sales driven organization? You're talking about ads and Facebook. Is this more of a marketing consumerish type of marketing versus a like a B2B sales engagement type?
So great question. So I used to think when I had my fire and water damage repair business that we were actually really good at sales and marketing. It turns out that people that had damage to their house just needed someone to fix it, and we showed up and we were really good at it, and they knew that, and they checked our references and hired us. So when someone's wearing their underwear around their ankles, they're ready to go, right? And that sales cycle is very short. It could be 20 minutes because they need their house back together. It turns out when I started this business, especially the ADUs, I just figured everybody that was going to call me was ready to go tomorrow. And they were ready to build an ADU and they had all the money they needed and they didn't have any family dynamics and they didn't have any legal issues, blah, 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 blah. Well, it turns out that's not the case. Okay. And these sales cycles can be very long. We have customers now that are just engaging with us again that we met last year in May.
Mm,
So it's a completely different sales cycle. It's a completely different marketing program. Uh, it's 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 completely different. And so I've had to reimagine and learn what I'm supposed to be doing.
yeah. So in the process of like learning, adapting, all that stuff, do you have like uh, a advisory board type things where you have certain people that you go to for certain things? Is your approach more like, hey, and how do I meet new people and discover new approaches? How does that approach work for you to try to develop this business or things you've kind of done in the past?
And in the beginning, we were following the Alex Hormozy playbook, and I've been to his place twice. I've met him a couple of times, and I will tell you for anyone listening, what you see on the screen is what he's like in person. He's a real guy that is not an act. He's real. And I've been to his place and I've seen his operation. Take that for what it is. And I love him and I love his stuff. And then we pivoted to some Gary V content ideas. And then most recently, we've started using Marcus Sheridan's material, which is They Ask You Answer. And that's currently the journey we're on. And we are working with his consulting firm, Impact Plus, and they are coaching us through the They Ask You Answer system.
Okay, very cool. Um, that's great. I love that progressiveness. Um, with with finding the right people. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, recruiting and all that stuff. What sort of things you have in place or find that works for you?
So I'm still experimenting, but I'll tell you what we currently do. So we run an ad on Indeed that seems to pull the best. We take the resumes and we put them through chat and say, these are the people that are responded. This is the job description. Tell us who you think the best match is. That'll spit out the top 10. We take those 10 and I look at them. We then send them an invite for a 15-minute Zoom meeting, just a quick Zoom meeting to say, hey, this is what I am, this is what you are. Do you think there's any alignment? From there, they are required to take an assessment online. Takes about 45 minutes. And that is just a range of different skills to see where their skill sets are. From there, if they get the required minimum score, then we invite them to come to the staff meeting and meet the team. Because culture is a big part of this organization here, and they have to be in alignment with our culture. They can be Gary Vee's talking about this right now. You can have an A player that's totally toxic and ruin the rest of your company. So we have to make sure that they feel like we're a good fit and we feel like they're a good fit with our culture. I will say
Mhm.
this by by far, no dig against anyone that used to work for me. This is the best culture and the best people I've ever had because of this system. So they come to a staff meeting, then they sit with me, and we talk about the role. And then depending on what the role is, there's some additional assessments for a ride along, and then a background check, and then an offer, and then a hire.
Yeah.
It takes
So
a
you said
long, it
ride
takes,
along. So your
yeah, it
your
takes a long
organization.
time. It takes a long time. We hire very slowly.
Hmm. You said ride along. So is your primary recruiting process geared towards finding great sales individuals?
No, honestly, mainly project managers
Got it.
is our constraint right now. Qualified project managers, because in our world, a project manager owns that customer from once they sign up with us, all the way through the build to the end. There's one voice, one person to be responsible, and there's that way there we have the best customer experience.
Got it. So that project manager, I guess, with the custom home, they would that's the only project they work on, or they would juggle multiple
No, again,
projects.
these are smaller. These are only 900 square feet or smaller. So the typical build time is about 100 days from start to finish. So they can have, 2 or 3 in pre-construction, 2 or 3 in construction, and a couple closing out at any one time. We don't
Got it.
start them that way. In the beginning, we just give them one at a time, but
Yeah.
eventually they have to work up to that.
Sure. Of course. Okay. Any other tips or things that you know you've
Yeah, you
passed
can
on in the
yeah, you can have a system for hiring. But you have to go with your gut. Okay. So all the lights can be green, and if your gut tells you no, don't do it. Number one. Number two, a month in, if you've made a mistake, no matter how much it hurts, you just need to have that tough conversation and move that person along.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
with
good.
all the testing and all that, you're still going to be wrong 50% of the time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, or you wanted to share about anything that you're doing, or any other insights you have?
Yeah, I was just on a podcast earlier, and they asked a question about when to start or when to try something. I say start where you're at. If you're thinking about making a change, or if you wait for all the lights to turn green and everything to be perfect, you'll never get going. Just start where you're at and iterate quickly. Break stuff, make things happen, and you'll learn faster that way than having a 14-page business plan with spreadsheets and charts and graphs and an easel. Just start with that and figure it out as you go.